the video that you're about to watch is too zoomed in. I didn't notice. I invested 20 hours into recording, so I can't just go back and re-record. It makes some of my points impossible to demonstrate because that requires the UI to be showing. I did the best that I could with what I had. Sorry. Hello! Let me give you a small history. I played The Sims 4 all the way up to City Living when I got extra frustrated with performance issues and all the bugs. Then I briefly came back for cats and dogs and have not touched the game since. Well, it has been several years and I entirely forgot everything about this game. As my fingers were itching for some Sims action, I decided why not make an overview video for all of you of what is it like to play The Sims 4 in 2022. I would like to make a similar overview video for every expansion and game pack, as I am quite curious about do their features still work. But I'm not made out of money and EA did not let me be an influencer, so let us dive into the base game first and we'll see about the rest along the way. I am planning to walk you through all of my gaming sessions as I do all that I thought was important to do in the base game, such as make a sim, make a house, get a job, do some social events, date, marry, raise a child, try adoption, try out ghosts and any minutiae that falls into my path on the way to doing all of that. So, let us begin. For Create a Sim, I decided to use the Stories feature, where the game assigns your sim a basic background, some skills and traits for you, but unfortunately while I enjoyed it, the questions seemed to be very straightforward. If you get a cooking question, you'll likely get a cooking related skill. You can re-roll the questions, but that makes it even worse, as then I'm just gaming the system to force the computer to make what I could manually make anyway. Customization variety of body marks and features is very impressive, though the variety in clothes will be disappointing. I think I could only find one long dress, though I found some oriental clothes. The clothes section for warm and cold weather was the worst. In real life I never wear pants anymore, but the game decided that while what looks like sports gear is totally appropriate for winter wear, maxi skirts are somehow not. I liked the likes-dislikes feature, though felt like it was too numerous and the game did not let me engage in it at Create a Sim at all, and I had to do it from inside the live mode. I think that was a bug though. I briefly looked at available challenge modes before starting the game and felt disappointed in them. If you run in the Sims community, you know plenty of player-created challenges such as surviving for 10 generations. By the way, the game even has an achievement for that. Or making a specific amount of money without using specific skills. All the challenges proposed seem to be of fairly simple kinds, such as achieving a specific work employment or getting 2 Sims married. They did not strike me as extreme enough to spice up one's gameplay. I suppose I was kinda expecting more of like the Sims story sort of thing from The Sims 2, but those were extra games, so I suppose I overhyped the feature without knowing what it was. That is on me. There are very few lots and neighborhoods to pick from for those that own no DLCs. You also cannot make the neighborhoods yourself, so you are stuck with whatever the game gives you, and that's really not a lot of lots. Selection of furniture is very poor. You will not establish any environment cohesion here, considering that furniture comes with stats. Eventually you will be left with one correct combination and no good alternatives, unless you want to settle for much less gameplay value. Lots have challenges and traits. Traits will always give you a lot buffs and not much else. There's one challenge, which is living off the grid. I played around a bit. I enjoyed that you required to gather water for your appliances, but was disappointed in lack of animation for this action. Furniture assigned to off the grid category felt selected at random. I cannot understand what is different between a regular and an off-the-grid toilet, for example. Some things that look like they should be off-the-grid technology are not, such as gramophones. There are items such as easel and chessboard in the off-the-grid category, but not things like bookcases, making me fairly confused, as I did not really feel like there was a need to mark obvious items as being off the grid, as it begs the question that about the other unmarked items that obviously also use no power. I don't know, maybe bookcases do consume power, what do I know? What is even worse is that some functions, such as adopting a child, absolutely require a computer, as there's no way to use this feature over the phone and are entirely incompatible with playing off the grid. Other functions, such as writing, have no non-digital equivalents, so your sim may only learn writing theoretically from books if they lack a computer. Now, building a house with off the grid in mind was also kinda a terrible experience because you have to place down candles for lights. There's no like lanterns and there's no way to like hang stuff, nor is there any sort of lights that would be powered by gas that you could like bring into your house and power them that way, even though that is what some religious communities do that live off the grid in real life. So there was really a lack of ability to light your house. Because of that, you kind of have to have like this very awkward old candle holder standing in almost every single corner, and the light's gonna be yellow to orange, and no matter how you're gonna try and curate your very poor selection of furniture, it will all appear a bit yellow to orange, because that is now just the lighting that you have in the game, and it's just not very appealing, at least to me. It made everything look very samey, and it's kind of my fault for playing off the grid, but still, it's a function. If you wanted to finish this function, I would have liked more. Despite only having one sim, the maximum I could speed up my speed was not all that fast, so majority of the days go very slowly. My sim will sometimes forget what they're doing. This forgetful behavior is the worst in social settings. Trying to play chess with other sims is a nightmare, as they will constantly start playing, stop playing, leave, come, switch places. The game does not prioritize the player's sim either, meaning that at one point after initiating wanting to play chess with someone, I was instead left watching as 3 separate sims initiated playing of chess with that sim, then cancelled it one after the other. I cancelled my action, yet it still remained there hanging. Another bug. Speaking of social interactions, I'm impressed by their depth. However, it seems that they're not that meaningful long term. For example, my sim asked another about increasing their family, meaning having a baby, and got a negative answer to this. However, when I selected to try for baby with this person a bit later, they were perfectly fine with this and gladly accepted. The lack of fluidity is an incredibly clunky experience. Sims will get stuck just performing facial animations instead of performing the action, even though it still kind of counts as performing the action, it just looks awkward. The action queue will be out of sync with the rest of the game, and animations the queue for washing up in the sink can still be going while on screen my sim is already asleep. I wonder if this hits differently if you did not play other Sims installments, but considering that I have, this is getting on my nerves. I cannot stress this enough how concerning it is that I am getting this problem with fairly decent hardware while playing with one sim and base game only. This franchise has countless DLCs. I wonder how does the game behave with them all? Or are you even meant to have them all? Because let me tell you, making EA not install an expansion pack if you own it is kinda a hard business, because you have to switch off automatic updates and it will still attempt repeatedly. I had to cancel over and over again to just have my base game experience, goddammit. Next up, I have heavily focused on social and family life. I invited my sim for a date. The date as a social event worked very well, and it was easy to follow it through correctly. I was annoyed at being made to do non-romantic interactions, but it does make sense to open the date with something friendly instead, so it was not an issue. The venue that I selected for my sim had a karaoke icon on it, but I completely forgot that karaoke was not a thing in the base game. So there is a microphone, but it's for comedy instead. The building felt like a cheap prop considering that it could not serve its main purpose, and has left me questioning why instead we could not have had like a library or a swimming pool type building. Next up was the wedding. I invited a caterer, a mixologist, and a musician, and nobody arrived, even if I got the required equipment that the game told me to get. I still had to pay for them, by the way, they just never arrived. The equipment blurb was also as a notification and not as a checklist, so I ended up second guessing myself a little. I found that you can't buy a cake, and as I planned the wedding by clicking on a sim, I did not have time to make one at home. Not that my off-the-grid house could even support cake making. The interactions between my sim and their partner worked well enough though, so I ended up with a silver wedding despite there being no cake. I loved the move-in interaction that the game offered me though, as it asked me how much money I would like to throw from the other household into mine. That was a very nice tweak. Adding one more sim to the household did not seem to cause more lag, so that is good. Childbirth was nothing special, as I just sent my sim off screen and they returned with a kid. How much the baby was treated as furniture really shocked me though. My sim was able to sleep through the baby crying in their room of all places, so like, it's right there, it's making noise, my sim doesn't give a shit. The game did not even exit super speed for this poor baby. They were also able to leave to work without hiring a nanny or sending the kid off to daycare, and now I don't actually know if that's a glitch or if that's actually intended functionality. I don't remember anymore. Off to death and ghosts. Killing Sims in a pool seemed all too easy. I waited until this young husband was 2 hours away from passing out and sent him to swim laps. He tried to bring up going to sleep in bed a few times, but as long as I cancelled that, it went very smooth due to this odd moodlet system that The Sims 4 uses, as he died very happy about that pool thing. His happiness about that pool thing was overriding him running out of energy. Now we should talk about the fact that the game was trying very hard to bug out on me on getting that pool, because getting it made me go on -11 consumption on electricity, despite living off the grid, and -20 on water. This has made me able to use all the regular functions of appliances as if my sim wasn't living off the grid, though that fixed itself in an extreme way later, with me being unable to use water despite using the interaction to gather water later. My fridge is also stuck on permanent full ice load. Well, we're here. Let us talk about energy, water consumption, and bills. I do not like it. In this game, it feels extremely easy to make money, considering that sometimes you'll just find plenty of items worth good 300 to 400 simoleons each by just digging in the dirt. But to balance that, the game developers have ramped up the bills to some very extreme levels. After building a second floor to the house for the newborn baby, I absolutely enjoyed all the staircase possibilities, by the way. Good job, Sims team. My bills have defaulted to being 700 simoleons without counting electricity and water, as my Sims don't pay those. Later on, when I had to re-enable electricity in order to adopt, I lost a governmental grant on something for being green, so they jumped to whooping 900 simoleons. This is fairly extreme. If you're not digging around for fines all the time, good luck. Furthermore, the water and electricity system is obviously finished off in some DLC that I do not own, as the store function would let me believe that I can beat those bills down by making my own electricity and water, but there's no option present in the game for that, so I really can't. I can just stare at this write-up taunting me, going, hey, if you had a DLC, it would be easier. Wouldn't you like a DLC? And it's like, game, that feels kind of dickish and just not very nice. I don't see the reason for you to include all that information for me, or a system that works in this broken manner when I just do not have the DLC that the system is tied to. Back to life gameplay. My child sim has grown to a toddler eventually, and it felt like by far the best expanded upon life stage. I was pleasantly surprised. The toddlers of this version are autonomous enough that they don't need constant supervision, but your sim still has quite a selection of things to do and skills to teach to the little one. The furniture selection for toddlers and children also felt absolutely plentiful in the base game only. For once, I did not feel like I was lacking something that I should later have found in some DLC, outside of maybe clothes. The only point that I wish that the game clarified was what I would get for getting all the toddler skills to 5. The game tells you that you should get them to 3, but that the skills go all the way to 5. Well, I got 2 extra skill points in every child skill, but as child skills are not adult skills, it really felt not worth it. I did manage to get my dead sim back as a ghost at this point. It was as easy as inviting them to move in once they finally appeared next to their grave. I had to get my sims remarried, but at least my dead sim did remember fathering a child, as that relationship stayed registered as son. Unfortunately, ghost sims are infertile, which is a shame considering that you could make ghost babies in the previous game. I don't necessarily see the appeal of ghosts in The Sims 4, honestly. The sim won't age, will still have all their needs though, despite being unable to die from any of them, and won't have many special interactions outside of scare for sims and possess for objects. As a life state, it felt far too superficial. I was pleasantly surprised that my dead sim now had a phobia of water, but was disappointed to see that the moodlet for phobias is a mere +2 on scared, meaning that even if my sim had no emotional status whatsoever, going for a swim, the joy of swimming would override the fear of water. That felt nowhere near strong enough. Speaking of which, sims now randomly develop wants and fears, so it seems. For example, my live sim is having a fear that they won't fulfill their dreams and that they're stuck in a dead-end job. At first I found fears to be exciting, only to realize that they're a major hindrance if you want to do anything with your sim. Namely, they completely froze my performance bar at work. You can spend a couple of hundred lifetime happiness points to get rid of them, and that seems like the best thing to do with them. You can also perform like a function that's like specific game dictated thing, like talk about your fear of not fulfilling your dreams after completing a want, or psych up to go to work. But when you have multiple fears, whichever pops up there is completely random, while all the other ones are still having like their negative effects to an incredible degree. Plus, they just respawn after a couple of days, and some fears that are even completely solved, like my child sim was afraid of the dark. I solved that one. It just kept on reappearing, regardless. After getting fear of the dead-end job and fear of unfulfilled wants returned multiple times, the only way to ever get anything done in the game was to switch wants and fears off in its entirety, and it wouldn't even like stay switched off. Like the option would stay ticked, but the fears would still reappear, so I would still need to like go to the options and retick the option multiple times, like untick and tick it again. Or rather, tick it and untick it again, because the option is, do you want wants and fears into the game? And now I'm like, no, I definitely don't want any wants and fears into the game. It was a disaster. It literally feels like a hindrance. Some things to mention here. These things are not related to the fears, by the way. First, I love how expansive the neighborhood is. Foraging for things feels highly part of the game, and the environment is quite beautiful to do so in. Secondly, plenty of things broke for me again. I got 2 achievements that I had no business getting. I got the achievement for having no social interaction with other sims for 24 hours after getting my sim back from their wedding, which is a lie. Both them and their groom interacted with each other. Then I got the achievement for keeping my emotion at fine for a specific amount of time too, when none of my Sims ever were in fine mood for a prolonged amount of time. At some point a neighbor tried talking to my ghost Sim and their interaction information stayed hanging there for the rest of the playthrough. Interacting with other Sims would not get rid of it even, so I got to know how a stranger neighbor was feeling throughout most of my playthrough. Marvelous, you go stranger. Next up, I got my child-to-child stage and adopted 2 more. As mentioned previously, I could not do this unless I had a computer, which meant that adoption was impossible on an off-the-grid lot. Now this seems to be a recent change, for you used to be able to do it through the phone, but not anymore. The adoption interface felt pleasant to use. Childhood stage is fairly expanded. There's plenty of interactions that can happen between children and their parents alike. Couple of notes. Reading a book to a child is a fairly clunky experience, as the adult will start reading before the child is even in the room, so it is as if they're reading to air and halfway through the child joins in. Another thing was the fact that I lacked clothes so much that I found it literally impossible to make a cold weather outfit for a girl. A boy still had the options. There's pairs of pants, but none of the tops or full outfits are tagged with cold weather, so your girl will run around uncomfortably bare-chested. She would be undressing to go outside in winter. Personal likes and dislikes about the stage. I hate monsters under the bed, because they can disturb the sleep of everyone in the household multiple times a night. I switched my kids to sleeping right after school to avoid the monsters happening. One of my girls developed a fear of the dark, and that was the cutest thing ever. Unfortunately, being in a lit room did nothing for the fear, so at night she was always scared, and even when I solved the fear, it would sometimes pop back up. Even when I disabled once in fears, it would sometimes pop back up. Even when that girl grew to a teenager, it would still sometimes pop back up and was just there the whole night, no matter how well her room was lit. What in the actual hell? I had my game full on shut down once here. I believe it was a memory leak, as shut down Chrome helped, and Chrome eats memory like it's nobody's business. Autosave would really be appreciated though. I only lost 10 minutes, but if that was hours, it would have been Jesus. Another side note, the autonomy for my Sims often selects what the game thinks my Sim would naturally like to do. Sims that I tried making bookish will go for random books. Sims that I told to make a meal before will want to do some cooking. The only issue here is that one of my Sims once warned their dead father that is a ghost in the family right now. And it became a habit. So on the one hand, they'll do what you would expect their personality to do because it's kind of learning by doing. On the other hand, the most awkward things can become habits, like drinking too much water, or mourning a currently living relative, so that Sim is just perpetually stuck on sad, and they will keep on making themselves sad again and again and again just because there's a tombstone on the lot. On to teenage years. Teenagers look too close to adults. They're too tall and too physically developed from the get-go, not to mention they use adult clothing. I was not a fan about that. Because I tried my Sims in some outfits here, a bit off topic, but there are religious, cultural, and ceremonial garbs available in The Sims 4 right now, but no way to even create a custom faith, making them seem very out of place and empty. A couple more comments on appearance here. I wish that sliders limited themselves a little bit when generating NPCs, as I have a Sim that looks scary anorexic. I adopted them. That was not there at the child stage. It's now very, very prominent in the teenagehood stage. On the other hand, the current skin tones in the game look absolutely stunning. As one of my other teenagers ended up extra dark, and she's just so incredibly beautiful. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna be using those genetics because she's not a boy and therefore couldn't get pregnant with aliens in my next review video of The Sims 4 Get to Work. Look forward to that. Lifespans in The Sims 4 now are just way too long. Teenagers stay a teen for 21 days, but there's nothing to really do with them outside of adult things. They can even complain about bills. What bills are they paying? When I don't know what to do with my sim, I just assign them to build a random skill. But to have some same old gameplay for 21 days with no challenge whatsoever is really, really boring. 5 days in most of my sims hit the be an adult requirement in their aspiration and reached grade A. They had completed their life state and there were still 17 days remaining. If you want to know, it took me 5 hours to get through those 21 days of that life state, and I understand that they expanded that life state for a DLC that recently released that I once again do not have. Therefore, my teen sims still act like adults, still have nothing special or teen to do, and that time is absolutely wasted on me. I understand that I can drop the lifespans to short, but then I'm dropping all of the lifespans, and toddler lifespan is fine, baby lifespan is fine, child lifespan is fine. Teenagehood just goes on and on and on, and for no good reason. The years really dragged on. It became very boring. I found that the game feels a lot more organic and fun if I just let my sims do their thing. However, when there's something that needs to be done, such as homework, I'll end up micromanaging because their ADHD kicks in and they just stop with whatever they're doing. This made time go slower than it should have ever have gone, and I'm so sorry for my voice. I'm just speaking non-stop for 26 minutes straight. And I'm not gonna edit that because I still have 20 hours of footage to go through. And I am really, really lazy, so I am sorry that this video quality is not a 10, but lower than a 10. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at lower than a 10. I don't want to rate myself. At some point, I decided I was satisfied with all that my ghost member of the family has accomplished, so I sent them back to the netherworld. I had to save and then leave to the main menu and come back for his portrait to disappear off the family view because it really bugged. Unfortunately, no one was upset about him leaving. They all had a good relationship with him, just that the Sims did not notice whatsoever. They were sad when he died. They would randomly go and mourn the dead sim despite him being around as a ghost and as a family member that's purely able to interact with you. But when that ghost is permanently gone and crossed over, not a tear, not a care, not even a single thought. And that is just really upsetting. I wish that they fixed that. As I was pushing through the teenagehood years, I noticed that I managed to play for over 20 real-life hours without this household ever owning a garbage bin. Whoops. At some point, the game was all like, oh, you can't throw that away because it requires a bin. And I thought that they meant like the house bin. So I bought a bin in their house, and it wasn't even a big bin, but it just like lasted for 20 real-life hours because Sims generate like no trash, which is entirely opposite to real life, considering that you end up taking the trash at least once to several times a week, and that is a chore, so I suppose good on them. Good on them on their no trash households. And that's that. I got a sim, I dated, I socialized, I tried jobs, fears, raised kids, made a ghost. I felt like I touched enough of the Sims 4 base game to give it some sort of a verdict in 2022. So how do I feel about it? Conflicted? The game could be summed up as being a mile long and an inch deep if we changed that allegory to have varying depth between one water droplet at some points and a good foot on the others. The game includes expansive neighborhood, building tools, create a sim, toddler, and child life stages that just are chef's kiss. They're really awesome, work fairly well, beautiful. But then the bad comes into the picture, and the bad includes barely finished features that are obviously meant to be expanded upon in an expansion pack that made no sense to even have in the base game, such as asking me if I want to store or sell my water and electricity when I can't make either, and penalizing me for not living green with the bills when it is impossible for me to do so. I would even argue that expanding the teenage life state to be 21 days directly ties to an expansion pack that allows you to follow your sim into a high school, and when you don't have that expansion pack, there's fuck all for you to do. And when there's fuck all for you to do, it's very, very boring. Like, my husband came in and he was like, "Oh, how is Sims going?" And without even thinking, I answered with, "Oh, I'm bored." And it's a game. You do it for entertaining. What do I mean I'm bored? I'm bored. I shouldn't be muting in-game sound on my recording software to tab out and visit the forums in the middle of playing the game because the game's just not holding my attention. And it is sad because just before that, I was having a blast during the toddler years, during the childhood years. I was having an actual blast, and then that came, and it's just same old, same old. Your sim is not quite the adult, so you can't like send them to a job or get married or whatever, but they don't really have unique things for themselves, so they're still there being a grumpy middle-aged person complaining about the bills that they ain't paying, dressing like a 30-year-old woman or a man, considering that all of their outfits are like exactly identical to adults. It's just a really sucky life state, and you really need to expand upon that for the base game players if you're gonna have it be last that long. Now, I also encountered loads of bugs, avenues built for wrong purpose, such as karaoke launch when karaoke is impossible in the base game, ADHD-like sim behavior that really didn't let me just speed through the boredom because I did have to micromanage them, fears making it nearly impossible to play the game, and really stubbornly coming back again and again and again and again. And I can't actually tell you that this is not gonna get fixed shortly after making this video because the update that introduced them was very recent, like 2 weeks level of recent. So for all I know, a month from now they will be like, "We tweaked fears," and then fears might be chef's kiss. But at the moment, when I'm making this, they're not. I came back to this game lovingly. Yet it got on my nerves in parts. It really didn't help that the last part was like the worst, and I had to like make this video right after going through the teenagehood years, so that nerves are still sitting here right now. But it wasn't all a bad experience. The one redeeming feature to the Sims 4 base game is that they gave it away for free almost everywhere, then put it into both Xbox Game Pass and EA subscription, meaning that you'll either already have this game or you'll have very easy access to it. If you need to drop some hours, it's alright. It's honestly alright. Though the experience just lacks a certain something for me to invest hardcore game time into it. Polish, I would say, as there's a lot of things that they got very in depth into, where they like nailed the tiniest minutia, like skin tones, or just the amount of recipes that you make, or the fact that your Sims now have likes and dislikes, but then there's plenty of other things that are just so incredibly surface level. What's the point of asking another sim if they want to expand the family, if they're gonna expand the family with you 1 second afterwards, regardless of their answer? It's like asking somebody, do you like frogs? And they go, I hate frogs. And then you're like, eat this frog leg. And they're like, frog leg. It's, it's sad because there's a lot of good here. And then there's a lot of things that are just unfinished strings. And they're just kind of lying about and rattling around. And it's sad to look at. Thank you all for listening to this massive video. I feel like I've read you all a book. Next up, when I feel up to it, I'll come back with a similar video essay for Get to Work. I'm planning on testing alien abduction, the alien planet, all 3 active jobs, see what works, what doesn't, the usual. And in the end, I'm doing this to relive some memories and maybe make new ones when I cannot physically play anything more involved in this. I was having a really bad ear infection and I'm losing my ability to play some tougher games because anything that strains my heart too much immediately gives me really, really bad sick feelings. And as I'm losing my ability to do things, I'm pulled back into the more casual projects. This got me through a lot of pain. Just making this got me through a lot of pain. And I'm not an influencer. I'm not made out of money. I can't afford all the Sims DLCs. What I currently noticed is that an expansion pack for most of them, except the last 2, I can get them for average between 12 and 14 pounds. And I did some scavenging and I looked at my Patreon income for the last month and I managed to get seasons. So now I'm up to date to seasons. But then I fell like a couple of dollars short for Get Famous and I was like, oh drats! I can't buy that thing that I will only use to make a video, but I'm making a very meticulous video while I can't do much of anything else. Therefore, this is very important to me. This is like my emotional support video making tool right now. So yeah, as months go on, I will probably be able to slowly catch up on the expansion packs as they're only released like 1 a year. But I'm behind on that, and I'm also behind on the game packs. And the game packs, the most I can drop them down to like 9 pounds each. And I'm not even beginning catching up on that until I have all the expansion packs and I churn out all the videos about expansion packs. Because of course I'm gonna take a long-term project again. Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I drive insane myself? Yes, drive insane myself. Well done, common structure. I meant sentence structure 37 minutes in. Who is even still listening at this point? I drive myself insane with all the things that I start and then lack the willpower to finish. So hopefully this is not one of those, but this is definitely a long-term thing as I'm gonna be getting the tools to make these. Like 1 tool a month. But for now, I have like 5 expansion packs to cover, which is probably fairly enough. And I read up about them. I read up what's in them, and then I figure out what exactly I want to test. And as time goes on, I'm just gonna like leave them in the game. I'm not gonna uninstall them. So if my game really craps out, because of all the expansion packs and just breaks down, then you'll know the maximum expansion packs that you can run on The Sims 4. You are welcome. Anyway, if you're still here, this is honestly my emotional support video. Thank you for watching it. And I do hope that I'm gonna see you again at some point. I do other stuff too. I'm let's playing The Sinking City right now. Well, I was until the ear infection hit. But I'm planning on returning to it once the ear infection is no longer here. Which is hopefully soon. And I'll likely be going back to Vampire and Masquerade Bloodlines between like October and January. So that's gonna be a lot of streams and a lot of videos. And then I have Skyrim to finish. I do gaming. I do quite a lot of gaming. But now on top of doing quite a lot of gaming, I'm also reviewing the Sims 4 stuff because they never released the 5th one. And I got bored of waiting for the 5th one, so I'm like, I'm just gonna make very meticulous videos on the 4th one. Fuck it. Especially when I can't physically do anything else when I'm feeling sick. So once again, thank you for watching, and now for realsies, goodbye.